Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I have got another video for you using the Spellbinders Craftoween die day 1. Now when I had made my Just the Cuts video, I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to put this guy together, what kind of card I wanted to make, and I kept thinking as I was looking at him that he looks like a singer, like a crooner, right? With that slicked back hair, and that stuck in my mind, so that was what I had to go ahead and make. So I did make a bunch of different variety purple shirts when I was making everything in yesterday's video, but I only used one of them because I just wanted to create a simple card and get a feel for the die cut. So now we're gonna put together this boy band of vampires, and I wanted our lead singer to have a sparkly cape because he has to stand out, right? So I'm showing you here how I placed this together. It is obviously exactly the same as yesterday, except for the cape portion. And I only wanted the cape to be sparkly. So what I did was cut the legs off and then sort of into a V, into a portion where I knew that the shirt would cover any leftover of the glitter. And then I did the same thing up top, cutting the head off into a V into the middle. And then I've gone ahead and glued that glitter across just a basic black outline of the vampire. And then I'm going to continue on, same as yesterday. I'll place down my fangs first, and then the tongue, and then the face on top. So the colors I'm using today are, let's see, from Spellbinders. I've got Poppy, Fairy Tale, Lavender, Lilac, Orchid, Violet, Raven, and Mulberry. Also pulling in from Concord and Ninth some Mushroom, and then I have some silver foil, and my black glitter paper is from Die Cuts with a Veal. And we'll go ahead and pop his face on there. And then we have our fifth and final vampire to complete our group. Give you a closer look at that. And then I wanted to make sure that you can see that sparkle. So I will go ahead and move him around so you can see the glitter there on his cape. Now, I don't have a die for a microphone, so I pulled out my Cricut, and it has been a minute since I've used my Cricut. I would like to do more projects with it for you guys. I have plans for that coming up, but I'm not sure when I'll start doing that because I already have so many things I'm committed to for Halloween. But I wanted to talk you through, when I'm using a die cut like this, how I size things before I cut them. So I started out by measuring my vampire, and he measures roughly 3 inches by 2 inches. So that purple block back there, that's sort of my stand-in for just one single vampire. And then I have Cricut Access. So I went to that and I just searched for a microphone, and I pulled out one that I liked, and I kind of sized that down, sort of looking at that block and estimating where the head was going to be, where how his arms are going out, just kind of trying to vision that there where I have my square or rectangle, whatever you want to call it. And then I sized my microphone down to something that I thought would work. I then knew that I was going to have it sort of pushed up on my card a little bit. I wanted it next to the vampire's face, or at least somewhat close to his mouth. So I created a pole for the microphone, and I just did that by pulling in another rectangle tool, and just drew a very, very thin one to match sort of the size of the pole at the bottom of that microphone. Of course, then I'm not going to actually cut out that purple layer. That's just for sizing purposes, but I will cut the background layer of the microphone. That's what I use the dark gray mushroom color for. And then the microphone and the pole that I'm going to place it on, I cut out from Spellbinders silver foil cardstock. And once I have that cut out, it's time to start putting the card together. So I found the easiest way to sort of keep them in line was to glue their hands together. This way, it's sort of like a chorus line, right? They're all perfectly in a row doing their number. And that made it a lot easier to line them up on the card as well, so I can make sure that the very small sort of border is even on each side. I'll do the same thing with the front two. And then for my microphone, I wanted to have this sort of stand out. I wanted to give this as much of a 3D look as I could. So I took one of my small foam dots and just cut that in half and ran that down the center there. And then I'm going to place that little gray mushroom piece behind. And here I've got my pole that the microphone's going to stand on. If you recall from the Cricut photo, there was sort of a little base on the microphone. It was so small and fiddly. I thought I'm just going to skip that and I'm going to place this right on the pole. I don't think it really makes much of a difference at all. But I went ahead and just glued that there. And I'm gonna grab my art glitter glue and get this back row of vampires put into place. Ah, I just love them. I think they're so cute. And then I am gonna pop up this front layer again to give the dimension, to make it really look like they're standing in front of one another. Before I place them down though, I do want to stamp my sentiment, just because I know if I've got that extra height there, it's going to make it a little more difficult in the MISTI. So I am using one of the stamps that was included with the Craftoween. It reads "Creepin' It Real this Halloween." And of course I've got my Simon Says stamp, Intense Black ink. Now I'll pull away the backing and then we will get this front row pressed into place. And it was very easy to line up because I like the way that he's shaped and the size of him, like the two front heads went right in front of those hands and it fit perfectly. Now I didn't want to cover up, I kind of wanted the microphone in the middle of all of them, but I also didn't want to cover up the hands because I had already covered up the hands from the middle and the back. So I just moved that over slightly and I figured he's our lead singer, right? We gave him the fancy cape, so the microphone can be closer to him as well. And I'm using some foam strips here. I get these off of Amazon. They're super great for shaker cards, especially if you're going to do a very thin frame. I'm doing a double layer of that, but I did actually trim that down. It was slightly too wide, so I trimmed just a smidgen off of that. And then added my double layer there, just making sure that everything is going to be nice and even. I'll add some glue to the back of the microphone portion. And we'll press that right down. And then of course we'll trim off the backing, or I'm sorry, the extra. For the inside, I'm going to stamp out another sentiment that was included, which is "Magic and Mischief Await." All right, we'll go ahead and get our panel glued down to the top of our card base. Just making sure all of my edges are even. And then I will take my bone folder all around there to make sure it's pressed down nice and flat. And we'll finish up by adding some ATG to our inside panel and pop that right down. And that will complete the card for today. I just love them. This came out exactly how I imagined it. Here are a few close-ups of the finished card. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I've used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.